Welcome to the podcast Living by Oak Values. My name is Robert, and I host this podcast with my friend Gary, where we dive deep and share meaningful stories and discuss our values that help shape our lives. We will explore how we use these values to guide us through life, shaping our decisions, our relationships, and raising our kids. We are embracing a journey of personal growth and navigating our own path. We are committed to living these values and passing them on to our children. We are thrilled to have you here today and can't wait to share our latest episode. Whether you're a long-time listener or just now discovering us, welcome. Feel free to introduce yourselves in the comments below and check us out at northmancoaching.com. You're welcome to join our community, Northman Legacy Crew, and let us know what topics you're most interested in hearing about. Sign up with your emails for behind-the-scenes sneak peeks and exciting updates. We hope you enjoy today's episode. Happy listening.
Hey.
All right, we're good to go. Hello.
Hey, Windle. This is Rob. Windle.
Wendell.
Wendell, good to meet you.
How are you doing?
I'm just any better. It'd be illegal. It's awesome.
Yes.
No. So it just rained like crazy over here. Well, I mean, as per usual, I totally lost track of time, but I was at a pool party and then it got rained out and I'm like monsoon, hailstones like this big, lawn furniture blowing in the pool and stuff. So yeah, I'm out here at a buddy's house in Chesapeake partying and whatnot. And they're like, oh, we need, so I was just playing guitar just now. I got the text ready when you are. I'm like, no, I was going to have ears for it and everything. I'm still, in no way was I even supposed to still be here with my kid, but the rain just wiped out everything. I'm like, wow, this is nuts. All right, anyway. It's so good to see you again, Gary. I mean, for
you
real.
You too, man. I see you on Facebook every day. So your wife is always posting about how awesome you are and how lucky she is.
Oh, Jesus. I know.
Don't forget, I was first, though. We used to share a bedroom together.
This is true. All I had was a couch.
You didn't bring me into this world. Don't tell me that.
Yeah. You were you were the guy on the couch. And then it was humble beginnings, man. It was awesome. A couple of Navy guys fresh out the Navy. And I'm like, what was I, 27? I don't know.
No, I was not even.
You probably were a lot younger. Yeah.
I was 23. You're not that much older than me, are you?
3 or 4 years. I'll be 50 next year. Next February, I'll be 50. 50.
Man, you're old, dude. 50. Wow.
Yeah.
And I think before I lived on the couch, we lived with Stamper.
We did. No, that was that was the couch you lived on, because it was you needed a place.
That was it. That other kid, that musclehead kid. Who was his name?
I don't even remember that guy. That's crazy.
I do.
Because it was
just
me
don't know
and
his name.
basically paying rent because the real owner of the damn place was overseas, and you needed a place. There was a couch in my room, and that's where you were at. So you and me in literally one room. We were like refugees or illegals or something crazy.
Yes. Good times.
Awesome. 20 some odd years ago.
Yes.
There's so many interesting damn things.
Yes. And then you played at my wedding. That was pretty cool.
That was pretty cool.
Yep.
That was cool.
You should have played at my divorce. That would have closed it out perfectly.
Would have been a lot more fun.
It would have been awesome. And my divorce was official on Cinco de Mayo. So you could have brought a mariachi band with you. Dude,
I would have done that "Give Me My Money Back, You Bitch" song by Ben Folds 5. That would have been perfect. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. We're gonna talk today about altruism.
Yes. Just you trying to say that is half the fun.
Yes. Isn't it fun?
Yeah.
We have picked Windle as our guest today because the other day his wife posted about him in Facebook, talking about how her husband was altruistic by helping out a woman on his mail route. So yeah, I saw that post and I was like, that's it. I'm going to get back in touch with this guy and he is going to be one of our guests. And here we are.
So Wendell, I have a question for you first. Do you understand what the altruism is?
I know what altruism is, yes.
Okay.
The entire principle of, just doing something good for good's sake, all by, without any real gain, But at the same time, it's sort of funny because part of me doesn't really believe it exists, altruism. At the end of the day, there's always some gain somebody's looking for. And even in my case, if I don't know, when somebody lives by like the golden rule, for example, do unto others as you to have them do unto you, or the principle of karma. If you're doing something, I mean, just adopting that principle right there kind of negates altruism all by itself, because you're living in a fashion where you're putting something out in the universe that you hope comes back to you, which is kind of selfish in a way, and after a while you're just kind of on autopilot doing it. But I mean, like this in this case where my wife was talking about, she's got like, this is all happening like this week. She's a bigger lady. This lady on my mail route, she's a bigger lady. She's kind of confined to a wheelchair, can't leave her house. A nurse always is coming to her house, and her eyes are just going really bad. It's all basically due to like diabetes or whatnot. It was supposed to be, she was supposed to have like, eye surgery, but her A1C was too high or something like that. And she was all tore up about that. And this one particular day, she didn't have her magnifying glass, and she was just frantic. She couldn't do anything. She couldn't like call people that she needed the magnifying glass to like see the phone, to like order food so they could bring her food. It was all make or break based on this one magnifying glass she had. She didn't have it. I was able and willing enough to find it. It was by her desk. She couldn't get around and, find it. It was just like, it made her day. So I don't know. I started rummaging around through all my old stuff. I remember having this big magnifying glass because it looked cool. I bought it in a craft store or something like that. But anyway, it broke, except for the magnifying glass itself. Magnifying glass itself was about the size of a softball. And I knew I still had that buried in a forgotten dish somewhere in my room or whatever. So I fished it out and I found it. And, I gave it to, this lady as a reserve. Now, all of this, it seems like it's something I would like done for me. I would hope if I was stuck in a house that anybody, whether they're a stranger or a family member, or like, if it all depended on a magnifying glass for me to eat, I would hope somebody had, hey man, here's a second one so you don't have this problem again. I really do appreciate the accolade and the recognition. I do feel like I'm more or less nice just out the gate, first. If somebody gives me a reason to be otherwise, I will. I'm not going to take my crap day out on total strangers. It's just not my nature. If altruism fits in there any given place, I mean, okay, but I still feel how I feel, I think, if that answers your question.
So do you think you did it wanting to get something out of it?
I don't think I did it to get something out of it so much as, and this is where I have a problem with the whole altruism thing. I didn't do anything to get anything out of it other than, I don't know, that whole pay it forward mentality. Like I said, I probably won't wind up in the same situation. But if I do, I hope someone acts the way I did accordingly. I don't know. It's almost like a future insurance policy way of thinking, maybe. But I'm not trying to just screw anybody over either. I'm more or less pretty trusting, borderline gullible, left to my own devices. I need somebody to mention, hey, you kind of need to look out for yourself there. I had a pretty trusting upbringing, out in Podunk, Wyoming, where I grew up. And that kind of sticks with me, I think. I've never really had a reason not to trust people. And I'm saying this because I think it's a trust factor when somebody is motivated by selfish gain. I'm going to screw you before you screw me or whatever. But I think that's a trust issue. And, more or less, I do trust most people until you give me a reason not to. But the bigger cities you live in, you can't lead that way. You can't lead with that. You're going to get robbed blind. Like I said, I almost don't even agree with my own assessment of myself, because on the other hand, left to my own devices, I probably would do something nice with zero gain, even if I knew full well nothing good was going to come from it. I mean, it's a yes and no from me to just make matters even muddier, I guess.
So I think it was Gandhi who said, like, the best way to lose yourself is to be in the service of others. Do you find yourself serving others more often?
Yes, I do, but I also think I'm predisposed to service more than most people. It's all about it's all about motivation for me. Like, what's going to get me from one end of the day to the next, to the the other end of the day. Here's an example. There's a call center I was working. It wasn't even really a call center. I was just doing like tier one IT stuff. I was an an IT guy when I was in the Navy. Turns out I hate computers. Don't want a thing to do with them. So, but that's what the Navy. That's kind of where I went with that. But anyway, between where I'm at now and post Navy, I was doing a help desk for this big intranet. Somebody I was working with was really going through it at home. He was having a bad day, and I was on a call. I put the call on hold, and I don't know, acted like I was doing something, trying to figure out a process to get them online, but it really wasn't. I was listening to my buddy who was really going through it, and he was. And I'm not bringing this up to be all shysty or confess anything. I'm bringing it up for the sole purpose of the fact that there was something right in my face that was more meritorious than the call I was taking. What I was being paid for. Your job is to solve this problem. Take the next call. Well, I put that on hold. Hey, screw that. My buddy's make or break in his home life right now. That totally needs whatever I have to assist him with. That impetus for me to do that, still no idea where that comes from, but I have so much of it. And that is a service. It comes, it comes out of me like a geyser. It's kind of like, maybe emergency motivated, or maybe if something is urgently necessary that somebody needs, everything will kind of come to a halt, in my life until at least I've done as much as I can at that moment to resolve it as much as can be. If there's nothing I can do, I mean, that sucks, but my heart's still going to go that way. My energy's still going to go where that is. So yes to your question, but I'm kind of wired like that as it is.
So I would want to jump in real quick. So if the only thing you're trying to get out of it is to feel good, that's altruistic. If you were doing it for money or, I don't know, free lunch every day or whatever she could possibly offer you material-wise, that's when it's, I'll do this for this.
Like I said, I mean, it fits the definition. Sure. I mean, the parameters of the definition, it does. And I am, but again, I'm wired like that to go even deeper on this thing. Both my wife and I are just like grammar geeks. I can't stand anything if it's spelled wrong. I can't stand, an apostrophe in the wrong place. The incorrect use of there, or there. Those things irk me to no end. Maybe being nice is more along the lines of, well, if I don't do this, it's just going to bother me. That's a selfish motive, really. If you're OCD and everything has to be in exactly the right place, and that one thing isn't, and consequently, if I'm gonna, if I'm living my day and I could have done something and this late, and I'm like, hey, I got to deliver mail, sorry, you're not eating tonight. I'm busy, I could do that. And anybody could do that. They'd be well within their rights to do that. Hey, sorry about your luck. I wasn't born to make sure you ate on a daily basis, but I can't knowingly walk past something like that.
For you to only get that feeling, whether you still call that selfish or not, it didn't cost her anything.
No, it did not.
So if you do something for me to get something, but it doesn't cost me or make me do anything, then I'm not doing anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's all I'm saying is that if it doesn't cost the person anything, then that's altruism.
I concur. Reluctant.
But what Wendell's saying is that you are gaining something from her, even though she's not. You're giving her something, but you're gaining something in return.
I'm gaining the resolution of the thing. It feels, there's a box checked off inside my head. I did something for someone else, that helped them through. So there is that. And I think that's where my contention of the whole point that altruism really truly can't completely exist on an absolute level, because unless you have no means of being satisfied whatsoever, nothing can be done without some other gain, a reciprocal gain. If it's nice, yeah, great. Even if it's just feeling like you did something good and having that warm feeling, that's a gain. It's a gain for gain thing. Karma is a gain for gain thing, like some strange barter insurance program. I mean, we can go deeper and go into the whole religious aspect of people. It's still something for something, a transaction, if you will. Now, I didn't get the magnifying glass to feel better about myself. So in that aspect, yeah, Gary, you're right. I didn't do it for the gain. I did it. She needed a thing, I mean, I gotta.
But why not just walk away?
Why not just walk away? You're right. I don't know. Some part of me believes in some destiny of, well, I'm in this path for a reason, and I have the wherewithal to make this lady's life easier in this aspect. Otherwise, why would it just be nagging in my head? I guess that's why not. And yeah, what wires us the way we are? I don't know. I mean, I know you, Gary. I know you're a nice guy, and I'm pretty sure you'd have done the same thing.
I'm not a nice guy.
Long time.
I'm a great guy.
You are a great guy.
Well, whenever you get time later on, Google the origin of the word nice. Unless you know this.
Word nice.
The origin.
Oh, she's got a phone. She's going to do it.
Oh, here it comes.
She's so introverted too. Most of this is my own sick satisfaction of bringing her into some public light that she doesn't want to be in.
Oh my God, the origin, Latin, not know, ignorant.
Yes.
Oh, wow. This is so good. So the origin of nice is basically a sucker.
And stupid.
This is amazing.
I'm not a nice guy.
That's so, yeah. In that aspect, no, you're not a nice guy, but you are. There's just
I'm a swell dude.
And we've had conversations about this, like, you better not take my parking space, when you're in like the post office or whatever, because I will come for you or whatever. And I've heard that and I laugh, knowing in my head I'm not gonna say that. I don't do that. I don't. I think it's because if I do need to like wage war or like weigh in and go in all hostile on something. Yeah, I guess I'm saving my energy for, I get the real battles like that, in life, because you'll find them, lock horns with your ex-wife in court over tens of thousands of dollars. You need that fight, and you need to come in with your head on both shoulders. You can't bring in nice guy then. So yeah, on both shoulders, yeah, just like that.
So all right, so back to altruism then. Do you think that you are that way because of the way you were raised, or is it something that was born into you?
I think the latter more than anything, although I was raised in a very, they were like super uber evangelical Baptist Christian upbringing. So yeah, there was a whole lot of, you better do right or it's going to bite you in the ass. But I didn't believe that living like that didn't purport me to being, I wasn't, you better do good or Santa's not going to bring you stuff. No, it naturally is in me. When in doubt, do the nice thing. Do the thing that would be like, oh, that was nice. Thank you. Do a thing that somebody's going to thank you. Do a thing that you would thank somebody else for if they did it to you. Nobody told me about the golden rule, really, and then I'm like, oh, I guess I need to be like that. So no,
what's the golden rule?
The golden rule: do unto others as you would have others. That'll bite you in the ass too, though. If you've got a thick skin, you can take a little punishment. You're not going to feel bad about doling out said punishment because of the golden rule. We're like, hey, I'm in the parameters here, golden rule, so this ain't a problem. When you put a definition on what a thing is and what a thing is not, it gets tricky. This is why I'm like yes and no on the whole altruism thing, because the deeper you go, the more you realize what selfish motives may be driving you.
Like is it selfish to do good for someone else, to feel good? Is that being selfish?
It's not being selfish, but it's not completely without gain. If the definition of altruism implied that you got some gain and that's okay, then it wouldn't feel there wouldn't be any conflict with me. I'd be like, yes, I'm an altruism.
You are doing us a favor. So technically you are being altruistic to us. What do you gain by being on this podcast with us?
Yeah, initially nothing. When I go back into the party I just stepped out of, I'm like, oh, sorry guys, I had to go do this podcast, with a couple of guys, and they're like super important. I mean, it looks good to me. It's like, I mean, this is actually the second podcast I've ever been on. It's funny because Gary brought up Andrew Stamper. We were talking about RoboCop, and I was calling it, I said it's a modern day Frankenstein story because, you are like the cyborg first person in your feeling, going off on Paul Verhoeven and how he really gets a feel of a thing, a character. So it was like, that's what I meant by that modern day Frankenstein. And I mean the book. I'm not talking about the movie, because the book will put you in how screwed up it was being the monster himself. He has an identity and he doesn't belong anywhere, and it sucks. But no, this is like podcast number 2. When I'm talking about, what I did this weekend, this is going to come up. This is going to be fun to talk about. Ultimately, I think the running theme of all of this rambling I'm doing is that there's nothing that is absolute. Really. There is no absolute thing. Is this more altruistic than not? Yes. It's like the definition of nice. Nice now versus nice when it was, no, I'm not a sucker. I have been before, but putting the whole, I don't know, whatever goodness is out there, you'll manifest, my dad was a farmer, and that whole farm mentality of putting out and then it comes back to you, the reaping, sowing thing, that's in there too. Am I living because of my environment? Did that kick in this whole altruism? I don't know. Maybe it goes back so far I don't even know. But I do know this. I know that, me bringing that second little magnifying glass came from who I am. That impressed my wife so much to the point that, she just went on a long little thing, and I totally had no idea she was going to do that. It was a real surprise. It was like this gift. I had no idea what I was going to get, and it was great. I loved that. If I didn't have any of that, yes, I would still do that. So again, I'm checking off all the altruism boxes. Sure, mostly incidentally about this. The fact I'm on your podcast as a guest talking about altruism is so awkward and strangely uncomfortable to just go on and on about these lauded deeds that I did and act like I'm gaining nothing from it. Part of the whole, I don't know, friction of me even saying, yeah, I guess it was more altruistic, is I have a problem, accepting accolades. That's really, it's a strange thing to be like, yes, you're welcome. The words "you're welcome" coming out of my face feel strange to me, and it almost.
So you weren't looking for an output for an award or whatever you said.
Right.
That came to you just naturally, but that's not what you were. That was not your goal.
Right. Exactly. It was not my goal. Make this lady's life easier. Looking back on it, this is awesome. Yeah, I'm second podcast. I've actually been a guest talking about altruism. Okay, because this is, I'm gonna say something else because it's just so crazy and cosmic the way it is. The one person I remember talking to about altruism, like we're doing right now, was Andrew Stamper, our old roommate. He asked me about altruism, and I told him, after thinking a lot about it, this is way back in the Navy, I don't think it exists, because you ultimately are trying to do something. Even on a karmic level, you hope it gets done to you also. That was where we left it. It's just so strange and bizarre that both Gary and I know the very person I'm talking to, who incidentally was the first podcast I was ever on, was his, and now I'm on Gary's, and here we are talking about altruism and an altruistic deed that I apparently did, that I am, trying my damnedest to say wasn't altruistic, because I can't take a compliment or something, or accept gratitude in some awkward, strange way. And that's what's hilarious to me about most of this. I'm getting a big kick out of it, but I have to smile at myself too, because really all I'm trying to say is, not just to Gary, but, to my wife too, you're welcome. First, thank you for acknowledging it, and you're welcome. I totally hope I can do something awesome that helps your life in the future. I mean, I hope, because I like doing these things that help others along in life, because we don't, this is finite. It's nice to think making a difference in somebody's life will be talked about long after I'm gone, like a real difference. I hope there aren't that many people who say, well, I'm glad he's dead. He cut me off in traffic, or he wrecked my car, that asshole. I hope there are more of the other kind of people.
You talked about, Andrew and altruism and how it just started happening. That same time that I asked you and you said yes, the very next day I was at work and there was a car and his license plate said altruism. That's weird, right?
That's so beautifully, cosmically, that's synchronicity. And I love it when that happens. I get to a place I don't even believe in coincidences anymore. I think everything lines up and it amazes me. Sometimes I'll be carrying mail and because I've been a mailman for 3.5 years. And prior to that, I was like this Billy Idol impersonator in an 80s band for 12 years. So when I think about, when people put what they do for a living on their Facebook or social media or whatever, mine was like a 5-year-old says when they ask him what he wants to be when he grows up. I want to be a cowboy mailman rock star. Yeah. And that's what I do. That's who I am. It's weird.
The kids that are yours, do you see any altruism in them?
Ooh. I see more in Sean than I do in Ian. Sean is my younger one. He's the 12-year-old. It's funny in kids because something happens in adolescence. You're treated like a sucker if you're nice. Going from childhood to adulthood, you wind up getting made fun of for being the nice guy. And I think what most people do, they're their nice selves as much as they can be without getting rolled over on by life. And then when, if they can incorporate it into their life, they keep doing that. So, no, I don't think people are as nice as they are when they're kids. You can also too be selfish in one aspect and be really nice in another aspect. So these are tricky questions, Gary.
Well, I want to go back to what you were just saying about kids and adults. And I think that you and I are a lot alike in the sense that we didn't really grow up. We do what we want. I do what I want. And some things are stupid. Some things are not. What was I going? So so we have childlike minds sometimes, I think. So
yeah.
If I just do things because it feels good to do things, or because it just seems like the thing to do, then that's what I'm going to do.
Well, I think I'm going to pull out my neurodivergent card. I'm on ADHD meds as we speak. I'm 49 years old, and I'm taking Concerta like I'm, I never grew out of it like they said I would. I think with people who are neurodivergent as opposed to neurotypical, I think they stay, childlike longer, maybe all their lives. But when I did, when I did the band, I would show up, it'd be the same set. It'd be the same stage, more or less. The crowd would be different. The setting would be different, but the set would not. And I would just rock it out and crush it and put it all out there on the stage and walk away and do it again the next day or the next weekend or whatever. It was something I could just do. That made sense to me. A whole lot of the rest of life didn't, the adult stuff, paying taxes and cleaning your gutters and, did you change the oil, you idiot, in your car, what, you think it's just going to work all by itself? Yeah, all those things, they were always problematic for me, all the adulty things. I think I stayed young. It wasn't even really stayed young as much as it was. I didn't associate being nice or being altruistic. I didn't associate that with naivety, immaturity.
But are you being naive or immature?
No, I'm not.
Because you live like a child?
I do think that dog eat dog mentality kind of goes away if somebody who thinks living in a naive aspect like a child needs to be put away. Somebody living, well, along the lines of, I'm not going to be a sucker, I'm not going to be doing, will just, wind up in a jaded kind of mentality where, they're not going to be thinking about anybody's gains except for them or their kids. Everything's a transaction. And I remember, maybe a generation ago, like in the 80s, in the 90s, you didn't want, I don't know, taken advantage of. You were ostracized if you were. I always knew I couldn't really adopt that way of living. There was always going to be some part of me that trusted too much, that was nice first, just out of habit. I'm glad that part of me just, I don't know, either never grew up or that, it just stayed in me. And, I kept going with it. It's true to yourself, which is very selfish, by the way.
But that's a good selfish. And I feel like your childlike thing, if you find someone who has a job or is doing something that they truly love doing, and the only reason they really do it is to feel good, then those are the people, I think, and I just came up with this, that are childlike, that never grew up because they're chasing dreams still.
Yeah.
And there's nothing really wrong with it. If you can pay the bills and take care of the adult part of life, there's nothing wrong with chasing a dream and living childlike.
Oh, yeah. No, I agree with that. I am blown away also by, this mailman gig has just been, there's never been a job that I did that I felt as confident about doing as I did, musically. Everything just kicks in and I can just turn my mind off and roll if I'm singing or playing or working a crowd or whatever. I never felt that way about another job, and I never thought I would feel that way about another job except music until I got this gig as a postman, and it's got its own rhythm. It flows. It keeps you young. It keeps you healthy. Most of the time you're invisible. There's nothing people look past more, I don't know, than a mailbox that's always there. You're like a walking telephone pole or something. Most of the time you're ignored. You're just part of the scenery.
Hold up. Can I jump in real quick?
Yeah.
So for our listeners, I am a mailman as well. And I feel like you are mostly ignored. But if you are 2 minutes behind schedule or 2 minutes ahead of schedule, they seem to remember you real quick.
Yeah, they do. What's taking you so long? Oh, well, sorry, I have a bladder. I couldn't deliver the mail. Oh, I dropped the mail. You're not supposed to do all the other things. Yeah. And there's so many reasons, I don't know, to hate anything. Any job can just crush you with, I don't know, negativity or positivity. But I do like the connections. I do like being able to help somebody. I put a check in the mail some guy was waiting 3 days for, fixed income dude. And he probably, it felt like he almost cried when he saw it, and that was like the first little, wow, what I'm doing matters. It's make or break for this guy. And that was years ago, the check in the mailbox thing. But, this magnifying glass kind of feels like that. It's the same mentality, I'm really glad to be able to do something so important for people. Now, the why or how, why I'm wired that way, but I am fulfilled doing it. There's no amount of money out there that is as gratifying, I don't think, as being in the right place in somebody's life right when they need it,
I do know. And it's funny because there are many times where I think that I would do anything, for a lot of money or for any money, really. But when I do those things to help people out, that I see nothing, just, that pat on the back or the feel good, that is the absolute best. That's better than an overtime check. That's better than everything.
Yeah. And this is also something I think is on a sliding scale. Gratitude, I mean. Anybody can look at what we're talking about here. Come on, it's a magnifying glass. It's this or it's that. It's timing. You can minimize it, any way you want. Money only matters if you don't have any. How much you need $100 when you've been negative in the bank for, 8 days, that $100 is way, it's worth way more than if you have 2 or 3 grand in the bank easy and you don't have any bills to pay. Then that 100 is, it's whatever. Now, being there in the right place in the right time, like I just mentioned, that's important to me. Might not be important to everybody. It's important to me now. If you're like maxed out on, feeling good and everybody's feeling good, that doesn't like save your life. I remember being in the Navy and being just 8 hours of fatigued, hot, blistering heat work. Just, you're just a walking zombie, just sweaty head to toe. But all of a sudden you walk past like an air intake and you get this breeze that just goes across you. You didn't even notice it. And when it happens, it's like 5 seconds of pure bliss because of the relief. And this is my point of the whole thing. You wouldn't have that relief without all the strenuous work in the first place. Suffering makes relief feel amazing.
So how are you suffering?
Maybe having jobs that were unfulfilling in the past. Maybe having jobs that I wasn't good at.
But you weren't suffering the day that you got that magnifying glass.
I wasn't, no. But
because you're
memory is interesting because you remember, like in the Navy itself, being in the Navy is not a fun time. More often than not, you're not having fun. It's a whole big fat depression. I mean, if somebody brought me there were so many times I needed a second magnifying glass in the Navy and it never happened.
It's funny. It probably does suck all the time, but when I look back on my time in the military, the only thing my memory has retained is the good times for the most part.
Isn't that funny?
What?
That baffles me to no end. How something the majority of the time, most any person stuck in the Navy, borderline can't stand it. Anyway, most people I was in the Navy with, if you're underway, if you've got to do something, it's most of the time just as frustrated, just counting the days when I can either be on leave or done the military or on shore. You're always wanting another time than you're present to be your reality.
That sounds like the post office every day, but okay.
Yeah. And then, and maybe that's really, the end all point of all of this, is this just an outlook? Is everything, can you really, have moments of amazement anytime you want? I don't know. I don't know the formula. Most people don't want to be miserable if they can help it, and if you want, because and I mentioned karma before, I do, it comes back to you. Now, I'm not living in a sense of fear where, oh, man, I could be an asshole today, but it's going to come back on me. I don't know if I'd feel right about being an asshole, whether it came back on me or not. It doesn't feel, it's incongruous to who I am as a person to just lead with that. Even if I'm in an environment where everyone deserves it in my mind, I still can't right out of the gate. All right, asshole from the morning to I lay down to go to sleep, straight up all the way through. I can't. Some people can.
Back to when you said people generally do not want to be miserable, but I feel like maybe not the majority, but there are quite a few people that will purposely put themselves into the victim mindset to get that sympathy.
Right. But that is its own currency too. I was trying to say more about this with $100 when you're broke and $100 when you're, flush, not the same $100. Now, misery as its own thing sucks, but misery that you feel like you deserve and are justified to have and live with, well, that's a different thing. That is something, it's like a strike or a sit-in that you're doing. Like, there are a lot of people in the post office who work and are miserable on purpose, as if to say, dude, this sucks. And you're going to see it in every aspect of what I do. And you're not going to be able to do anything to change me either, because you can't fire me. I'm doing this and this. You can't write me up. I'm doing that and that. So you're just going to see it all over my face, just how miserable I am. Look at it. I'm not going to let you ignore all this misery. And people do that.
They'll retire and they will look back and they will talk fondly of their career, even though they were miserable every day.
Yeah. And look, man, that's how, that's what makes you tick. Well, I mean, it's your movie, man. It's your life. You're going to die, and there's going to be this many decades of you being miserable. If that's what maybe you weren't thinking about that, but that's the reality of the situation. Your environment is going to remember that. Your kids, your wife, your work, your colleagues.
So what you're saying right now, if you tie all that back to you're now you're talking about what your people will think of you when you're gone. So you're talking about your legacy now. So that goes back to your altruism, really, because people will talk of you and the things that you did for no real gain, except maybe feel good.
Yeah, you're right.
They'll
are
probably
right.
say what a nice guy you were too.
And that is true. It seems like currency to me, but it's a funny kind of currency. Altruism is like, just for the sake of the argument that this podcast is based on, I'm gonna go ahead and acquiesce. Okay, yes, it's an altruistic thing. It's an altruistic deed. These situations of altruism that I find myself in, where I will do something and it will be a good, whether it comes back on me or not. I keep doing them, out of feel or whatever it feels right. I feel like there's wealth in it, prosperity. I feel like it's its own currency. It's not financial. It's not, being in that band, I garnered, quite a bit of fame in my little area. I like to joke around that, I'm like a news anchor man. I'm not nationally famous, but they know me around this town. I can go into a restaurant and leave the restaurant and people are going to be like, oh, you knew who that was, right? It's that kind of fame. That's also its own currency too, but it goes away the minute you recognize it. If you're living chasing fame, no, you're doing it wrong. You can't look directly at it. You can't really think directly about it. I feel like altruism's the same kind of thing. I'm not waking up like Mother Teresa going like, what nice thing can I do today? I mean, I'm Mother Teresa. I'm the one that everybody's looking to be on what's going to be the nicest thing. I would hate, first of all, to be known with that over my head. Like, oh, yeah, well, we're dealing with Mother Teresa. It's going to be, she's never going to do anything underhanded.
So I have to go back to where you said earlier about leaving the restaurant and people said, oh, you know who that is. And that felt good.
Sure.
But the only thing you did for those people to recognize you was take the craft that you had with the guitar and the music and do the best that you could.
Yes.
And
yes.
Was it your goal for them to someday be able to say, hey, you know who that was?
This is like a chess game to you. Yes. And yes, you're right. All of that is true. I did not do what happened after that. Not even my motivation whatsoever. So yes, altruistic AF all day.
Awesome. So I think that me and you are a lot alike. And when I started, with these values, I have a lot. We have 68 values that we have here in this deck. When I came across altruistic, I was like, what on earth is that? And when I Googled it, what it was, I was like, oh. Because when I got divorced, before divorce, we always had holidays as a kid, with family. And then when I was married, it was one of the two families every holiday. So when I got divorced, I had nothing. I was invited, but I chose not to go. But I went to the homeless shelter to use the skills that I got cooking in the Navy and after whatnot to help feed the homeless.
Wow.
And there was the only thing that I was trying to get out of that was to get out of my head.
It worked though, didn't it?
It absolutely did work. I actually did it for 2 years, and then COVID stopped all that stuff.
I'm glad you had that. That's good. And I'm glad you had that for the selfish reasons that it got you out of your head. I'm not sure how altruistic that is, though.
The bottom line is I did something out of the kindness of my heart using the skill that I had. I could have sat here on the couch and drank whiskey until I was out of my head.
Yeah.
Or I could have done something right and good for someone else.
That's awesome. Well, all right.
And if the listeners out there would like to go further, deeper in this topic, you're welcome to reach out to Gary at Northman Coaching, Robert, northmancoaching.com for your free consultation call. And folks, that's a wrap on today's episode. And of course, thank you all out there for listening. We are so glad you could join us today. If you enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to subscribe to our podcast, Living by Oak Values. And if you feel generous, leave us a review. It really helps us out and keeps these conversations going. For more updates, exclusive content, follow us on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and visit our website, northmancoaching.com. We will be back next week with another exciting episode you don't want to miss. Until then, keep discussing your values, embracing the journey. Take care and stay authentic.